Hey guys, and welcome back to Dark Blue Nutrition. Today we're going to talk about the 5 food rules, food hacks, diet tricks, whatever you want to call them, that you should always ignore. I hear it so often and I see way too many diet rules all the time that it just really gets to me sometimes. I think we should all have a come to Jesus moment about the fact that these food rules are really just these stupid constructs that have somehow come about in society that we all just need to ditch. Listen, I'm all for healthy eating and I'm a huge advocate for eating in a way that fuels your body, but I think we can find a way to do it without listening to these hard and fast diet rules that you have to follow, or else you're just a bad human being, or you're a terrible person, or you're just considered unhealthy. As a dietitian who is a big advocate for intuitive eating, it just drives me absolutely bananas to see people have such black and white thinking about food. And listen, I don't blame you for having these terrible thoughts about food, because when it comes down to it, we are really indoctrinated with these messages from a very young age. So anywho, before I go any deeper into that rabbit hole, we're just gonna debunk some of these myths and knock them right out of the park, because we don't need them no more. So say bye-bye to diet rules and kick them to the curb, because we're gonna talk about how to love your body, love the foods you eat, and incorporate all foods into your diet for a healthy, balanced life. All right, I need to slow down on the coffee. The first diet rule that absolutely grinds my gears is one of the big offenders, and I wrote them down because I have a terrible memory. If you're hungry, you should do something to distract yourself or mask that hunger. I absolutely cannot stand this rule. Listen, our bodies are very smart and very adaptive. And one of the things that our bodies are designed for is to resist and prevent starvation. So if you are under eating or not getting yourself enough calories, not getting the type of balance that you need, then your body is gonna automatically crave food. Oftentimes it craves carbohydrates and fats, because carbohydrates and fats are the primary nutrients that our bodies need to survive. So for example, to explain that a little bit better, because that was not a very good explanation, carbs are your body's preferred source of fuel. So it's the first thing that your body is going to convert to glucose, which will convert to ATP or energy. So energy, as we all know, is something that we always need every single day. So the first thing that your body wants is carbohydrates. So the thing that your body prefers to store as energy, and then it needs for a plethora of other things like your brain chemistry and all that fun stuff, is fat. It also helps to protect our bodies and cushion our vital organs from being damaged. If, say you got in a car accident like I did last week. I fortunately did not get hurt, so don't worry about me. But if I were to get hurt, having a little bit of fat is there to protect me. So our bodies often crave the carbs and the fat, because those are two things that we really need for survival, and in the right amounts. So people always tell me, oh, I'm craving Reese's peanut butter cups, or I'm craving chocolate all the time, or I'm craving carbs. It probably means that your body is being underfed and that it just wants the quick energy or the storage energy back. So don't ignore your body. Don't think that just because you're craving carbohydrates means that something is wrong with you. It's really not that. It's probably that you need more food, and you want to honor that. You want to respect your body and fuel it the way it needs to, so you can think clearly and do the things that you love in life and just live your life without having to be preoccupied with food. I could probably go on and on about this topic, so we can talk about this in more depth if you would like. Just comment below, but that's what I'll leave it at for today. The second food rule that I absolutely hate is carbs are bad for you. Now, I just kind of went into a little bit of an explanation about why carbs are essential. Carbs are our body's preferred source of fuel. So you always want to have some form of carbs in your diet. And I know particularly for my audience, we are very active on average. We love to get out and do things like walking and hiking and sports, and even just the workout at home like I really prefer. Whether or not you go to the gym or work out at home or work out outside or whatever you prefer, your body is going to need carbohydrates not just to fuel your workout, because that is your body's preferred source of fuel for exercise, but it's also something that's really needed alongside of protein after your workout to restore your glycogen stores, which, long story short, is your body's stored form of carbs that it can use when it needs extra energy. So we could also talk about this all day. I feel like we could talk about anything nutrition related all day long, but that is just the basic reason your body needs carbs. You'll also notice that when you're low on carbohydrates, or if you're on a low carb diet or something like that, that you'll get really, really hangry. And the reason for this is that your brain is just not getting that energy that it wants and desires, so it's really hard to think clearly. The second thing is that carbs play a vital role in helping the body boost serotonin levels. So without those carbs, your body is getting lower serotonin than it would normally, and serotonin is a feel-good hormone. So that, again, leads to having a poor mood and feeling hangry. So, long story short, eat your carbs, don't be ashamed, and make sure to get a balance. So incorporate some whole grains in there, and also just enjoy the carbohydrates that you love, and you'll feel not hangry. Food rule number 3 that you should always ignore is that you should eat 1,200 calories. This might be debatable to some people, and I want to clarify this food rule. There are certain people in the world that can have 1,200 calories. Babies. Yes, it's true. Babies have a calorie requirement of approximately 1,200 calories. 1,200 calories is kind of a gold standard for most diets, and while I think I think the intention of the 1,200 calories is that 1,200 calories is basically like the bare minimum that we can consume and still like sort of maybe have enough room in there for a potential of nutrient balance. What I mean is you can fit in fruits and veggies and proteins and fats and carbohydrates into 1,200 calories, and you might be okay if you take a multivitamin to be nutritionally not deficient. What I'm trying to say is 1,200 calories is the calorie requirement for a young child. Actually, let me back this up. Okay, so it's a toddler, my bad. Anywho, this is the calorie requirement for a tiny, tiny human being is the point. And if you are an adult, then you have more body mass, which automatically means you burn more calories at rest. And if you're an active adult that has a larger body than a child, then that dually means that you need extra calories to help maintain muscle mass. Your body needs those calories to do activities of daily life. Not to mention all the crazy stuff that you guys probably do, like skiing, going outside, going on a hike, doing the stair climber at the gym, lifting heavy weights, and all that fun stuff. Doing some fun workouts on the Dark Blue Nutrition channel, whatever you're doing. You need more than 1,200 calories almost without a doubt. Typically, women need a tiny, tiny bit less, and that has mostly to do with the fact that women have a lower muscle mass than men, and so therefore they burn less at rest than men, but that's not always true. I mean, you can be a very active and muscular woman and need more calories than a man because they're maybe shorter than you or smaller than you or less muscular than you. So it kind of varies, and make sure to talk to your personal dietitian if you have any questions on that, or if you want to set an appointment with me. Information down below. All in all, even though I really don't believe in calorie counting as a long-term solution to, eating a healthy diet, I do think that if you are temporarily counting calories for just the purpose of learning, gaining knowledge on what the food that you consume has in it, you're likely going to need higher calorie needs. Now, I don't want to tell you individually what you need because it really depends, but I can leave a link to a calorie equation that is reputable in the links below if that's something that interests you. The 4th diet rule that you should just ignore is that gluten is bad for you. Now, I know we all are familiar with fad diets, and years back I remember when gluten first came in the spotlight as something that was a bad thing or something to avoid. There are some people, I do have a couple friends, or actually probably like one friend that has celiac disease. And what that is it means basically your gut cannot tolerate gluten. It becomes very inflamed from gluten. We can also have things like gluten intolerances, and having an intolerance means basically you're not physically allergic to something, but you do have kind of a gut reaction that feels icky that happens when you consume a certain food. So I want to say this genuinely, that I do not mean to insult anybody that has an intolerance or that has celiac disease, because these are very understandable and logical reasons to cut out gluten, and you definitely should. I would recommend it, your doctor would recommend it, any medical professional would recommend that if you are intolerant or allergic or have something like celiac disease, to definitely avoid gluten. But what I'm talking about is the normal everyday human beings that decide to cut gluten out because they think it's bad for no good reason. And gluten in itself is not a bad thing, I promise you. In fact, oftentimes things that are the gluten-free version of, say, like your bagels or your breads or anything like that, are made with something like white rice flour or tapioca starch or potato starch and stuff like that. And oftentimes they're a lot lower in nutrients than your typical whole wheat bread, whole wheat crackers, stuff like that. Whole wheat bread and whole wheat flour, things that incorporate those ingredients, actually have a lot of health benefits. Wheat in itself, if you break it down, is made of the germ and the endosperm, which have tons of health benefits, vitamins, minerals, and they also contain fiber, which is so important for your gut health and your digestion and helping your body naturally rid itself of toxins. That's right. You don't need a detox tea, and that's a whole nother tip, I guess, for a different day, or a whole nother video for a different day. But your body naturally detoxifies itself using fiber to help pull in nasty stuff, and you excrete it out of your body. You learn something new every day. All right, and the fifth diet hack that I think you should ignore is that you have to eat at certain times of the day. So as I have mentioned in previous videos, I'm a huge advocate of listening to your body and eating mindfully and intuitively. And listen, I am a schedule type of person. I am a routine type of person. So I'm not saying that I don't eat at typical time periods in the day. Usually I do like to stick to kind of like a relative routine. However, I think that sometimes we hear these things like you have to eat 6 times a day, or you have to eat 2 times a day, or you have to eat 4 times a day. This is the optimal amount for your metabolism, blah, blah, blah. But I think when it comes down to it, it's what works for you. I have friends that eat 4 times a day, have a great metabolism, and seem to be just fine energy-wise. I typically eat about 6 times a day in smaller quantities, and that is what suits me. If I were to eat 4 times a day, I would be starving, and usually when I eat larger meals, my gut doesn't feel as good, and I also have like a tendency for hypoglycemia when I go too far between meals. And so this is just something that you have to take individually. And I know that's like a hard pill to swallow for some, because sometimes we just want to know the right answer to the quiz, and we just want to know what's the thing that's going to help me the most, what's going to help me lose weight the most, what's going to help me have the best metabolism in the world. But we all have different genetics, so to have one solid answer that fits every single person is just an unreasonable request, if I may. So find what works for you. You can play around with this. I started off probably eating 5 times a day, and then I would feel like guilty for having a 6th meal, or like usually it's a snack by the end of my day, but I would feel guilty because I was like, I just ate like 5 times today, like I should be fine. But the truth was, I wasn't honoring my body, and I was kind of resisting the fact that my body was uniquely mine. I think that with my past history of disordered eating and suffering from an eating disorder, that my body just got into this adaptation where it kind of regulated my hunger for me and regulated my desire to have food throughout the day, because it wanted to ensure that I was getting the balanced food that I needed. That sounds kind of crazy, and like that is by no means a medical diagnosis of myself, but I do think that the body just knows what works best for your particular genetics and the things that you've been through and the metabolic changes that go on within it. So I think that if you're feeling hungry in the morning and all throughout the day, then you should find a schedule that works for you, like eating 5 or 6 times a day. If you're someone who is just naturally less hungry, prefers larger meals, and wants to eat 3 to 4 times a day, I think that's perfectly okay too. The only suggestion that I might throw out there is that if you're eating 1 time a day or 2 times a day, then I really do think that you should try to push yourself to spread some meals out throughout the day, because that can end up really hindering your metabolism if you only eat, again, 1 to 2 times a day. And it can also really mess with your hunger and fullness cues, so you may not feel hungry at this point in time more than 1 or 2 times a day, but I think your body will adapt if you start with eating 3 times a day and then 4, and then seeing what your preference is from there. Because I think it's really hard to trust your body when you're only hungry once a day. And I've had patients, I've had clients that were, but then we discovered some underlying stress, some underlying things that were going on in their life that were really impacting their hunger and fullness, and then they kind of figured out what worked for them and ended up enjoying eating multiple times a day. I feel like I had a hair on my lip. So anyway, that's kind of a long-winded answer, but do what works for you and kind of play around with different schedules and different kind of volumes of food throughout the day and see how you enjoy each different type of thing. I know that I very easily could have explained more about intermittent fasting, but I feel like that's a whole different topic. So let me know in the comments below if you'd like to learn more about, why maybe I wouldn't suggest intermittent fasting, and we can talk about it in a whole nother video. I appreciate you so much for hanging out with me today, and I'm gonna leave some links to other videos that I think you'll really love in the end card, so stick around for that. And until next time, I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.